Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to go over how to interpret the Texas Academic Performance Report, which is the document that reports the results of the STAAR test, among other things. So in one of the videos I already talked about how to interpret some of these basic pieces of information at the front. So I'm going to scroll down and show you how to interpret some of the other pieces of information. So I did pull the report for Liberty Elementary in Louisville ISD. And so what we're actually going to start with is down kind of towards the end of the report. So sorry for the scrolling. We're actually going to start with what the campus student information looks like first, so we get a feel for maybe why we're seeing some of the other numbers other places. So it will break it down, the campus student demographics, into the grade level distribution as well as the ethnic distribution. So in this particular case, that we can see that this school is a predominantly white school at 62%, followed by Asian population at 23.9, and then followed by Hispanic, excuse me, at 6.6. So again, we do see it's predominantly white students with a really small, that's kind of skewed here. We only see 10% kindergarten. A lot of times you'll see similar grade level percentages, but I know this particular campus, and it's not prolific with a lot of young families. So we see a lot of families just kind of moving in and then they don't move out. And so it's kind of considered an aging community, I guess. What we also see, which is really important, is this number down here, economically disadvantaged. And then they have non-educationally disadvantaged, which I think is funny because it's just the subtraction of 100% minus this percent. So this is not considered a special population. Again, this is just telling us that 98% of the student population is not economically disadvantaged. And so when you're looking at your numbers, that is not, again, it's not a special population. So we see that at this school, only 1.7% are economically disadvantaged. And what that means is that there's only 1.7% of the student population that's on free and reduced lunch. And so really that's one of the only indicators that we can use to see if students are disadvantaged or not. Then we've got English language learners, students with disciplinary placements, and then at risk. Now, at risk can mean a number of things. It can mean economically disadvantaged, so it can include that number. But each state defines what at risk means. And so for the state of Texas, it also means that maybe they failed a grade level. Could mean that they failed the STAAR test. It could mean that the student is pregnant. It could mean that they're an English language learner. So there's lots of things that put students, according to Texas, in the at risk of dropping out or failing category. This is what's really cool too. This is new within the last few years. The total students with the types of disabilities. So we have total students with 58, which is a very small number of students who have a disability. But then when we break it down, we see that of those 58 students, the primary disability is a physical disability at 43.1%, followed by behavioral disabilities, and then intellectual disabilities, and then followed by autism. So this is kind of a new reporting system to break it down by the type of disability, which is really neat. Mobility, 3.4%, that's a really small number too. That tells us how many students are moving in and out of that campus throughout that year. So the higher the mobility rate, obviously the harder it is because you've got students moving in and out. So what happens is that in October, they take a snapshot of the students that are on your campus, and that's who they use to report your numbers. And that's why that mobility rate is really important, because let's say in October that student was there. Okay, well, maybe they moved away in December. Well, they're still counted in your statistics, even if you didn't have instructional time with them for the remainder of the year. So that's where that really comes into play. All right, now we're looking at, let's go down, class size information, which is kind of fun to look at. And then we finally get down to the staff information too. And so this tells us how many teachers are on campus, how many professional support staff is on campus, how many principals or educational aides. And then it also breaks it down for us too by ethnicity and gender. So we see that the gender and the demographic makeup is primarily white female. And we also see that 75% have their bachelor's degree, 25% have their master's degree, which is about on average with the district and the statewide numbers. Years of experience is also another really important thing. We know that the more years of experience a teacher has, the most likely they are to have success in the classroom, just because experience is golden. And so we do see that there's a very high percentage of teachers with 11 to 20 years of experience at 56%, and over 20, so 80% of their population has a lot of years of experience, which is great to see. And when you look at it across the Texas numbers, we see that 8% are new teachers, with a strong majority, or not strong, 29% in 1 to 5. Okay, and then fun things about average of salaries and stuff like that. And then here's the last little piece as far as just demographic data, and then we'll move up to performance data, is we see how many students are in bilingual ESL, so 2.5%, which kind of mirrors that ELL number, because that was 2.5% as well. Career and tech, gifted and talented, which is very high. I mean, state is 7.9. This is a little, not even a little, lot skewed. And then special ed population is at 11.3%. And then the teachers by the program served, so that we see that even though there's a high gifted and talented population, there's only one GT teacher. And that's not atypical. We see that a lot across districts. We do see that for the 58 special education students, however, we have 1.4 special education teachers, which again is not atypical to see, because those programs require a lot more as far as related and educational services go. So now let's go back up, again, sorry for the scroll, and look at performance data. So it's going to report out performance data for the tests that are given on that campus. So if your campus doesn't have 3rd and 4th grade, or doesn't have 4th and 5th grade, it's only going to report out those numbers tested at that campus. So first off, it's going to report it in 3 ways: approaches, meets, or masters. And it's going to report it out based on the campus number, break it down by race, and then also break it down by some special populations that are required by the federal law to report on, which would be SPED, economically disadvantaged, and ELL. Now you'll see that there are dashes, and you'll see that there are asterisks. The dashes mean that they don't have any American Indians or Pacific Islanders who took this 3rd grade reading test. The asterisk means that they did have African Americans, they did have 2 or more races, they did have SPED, they did have this, they did have this, but there were fewer than 10 students in that area who took that test. And when you have fewer than 10, they don't report out those numbers. So they just put the asterisk there. Okay, so to pass, technically, the STAAR test, you have to get at approaches grade level or above, which is kind of funny to me, because when I first looked at that, I thought, approaches grade level, that doesn't mean passing. You're not there. But according to the state of Texas, it is. So how you interpret it is, we're going to follow this cohort of 2018 class. And 96% of those students who took the 3rd grade reading passed it at approaches grade level or above. Okay, so we see of that 96%, 73% met the grade level or above. So what that tells us is about 20% of the students just had approaches grade level, which means that they kind of barely passed. 73% was meet or above, and we have 49% who actually mastered it, which is the highest level you can get. And that's a really high number. And so it's going to report that out for each grade level and each test taken. Now, one of the common mistakes that I've seen teachers do all the time is they say, well, this number is really different. Wow, 2017, 64% mastered, and now we only see 49%. Well, it's a completely different group of students, so we can't necessarily compare those 2 numbers. What we can look at is in 2017, they had 64% at 3rd grade. Now we can go down to 4th grade. In 2018, when they took it in 4th grade, 56% had master's grade level. Now, that number can be a little lower for lots of reasons. One of those reasons is that the state of Texas every year raises that bar of what the expectation is for mastering, meeting, and approaching grade level. And so it could just be that one year, yeah, they kind of each, we got it, but then the next year they just didn't quite make it because the state raised the expectation for what mastering that grade level is. And that's where we see some of these other numbers here with the student progress domain, is that we see that there was this kind of expected growth in these areas for these student populations. Okay, so I think that's all for now. And if you have any questions, please let me know.